Hellmaster EX. This award-winning system features the first single-engine joystick with digital electric steering and new autopilot capability. See Hellmaster EX in action at a Yamaha Outboard dealer or visit YamahaOutboards.com.
The fishing news is sponsored by these fine partners.
If you've been having a tough work week trying to get everything in order for your 3-day Labor Day weekend holiday coming up, Tom Lynch from Angry Fish Gallery in Point offers this soothing imagery from somewhere off the beach. Video decompression. It's a little like a relaxing gaze into an aquarium, except unlike the tank at home, this scene begs for a thin metal or an epoxy jig with a hook attached. Albies, bones, false albacore, Atlantic bonito, lighting up the inshore and nearshore grounds this week, offering a shot or two to surfcasters and jetty jocks as we head into what unofficially is the last weekend of summer 2024. But the summer speedsters are here, what we refer to in our coastal kayak clash as the hardtails, the albies, the bones, and the Spanish mackerel too. They're on the move just in time for Labor Day weekend. I'm Jim Hutchinson with the New Jersey Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman magazine. It's Thursday, August 29th, and for the most part, once Labor Day Monday passes, you're pretty much allowed entry on nearly every Jersey Shore beach that I'm aware of without a beach badge. Big headline last week, but soon enough too, in addition to that, not being hassled by any badge checkers or anyone else, we'll also be going on a town-by-town hunt for those mobile beach pass permits for the trucks, because that's coming up too pretty soon. Albies and bones. Let's start with the albies. Century Rod rep, Rob Crossley, you say that 5 times fast, he called the albie action this week simply phenomenal. That's in a text that he sent me. While Captain Dave DeGennaro on the High Flyer out of Barnegat reported the best bonito bite he had ever seen. That was over this past weekend. 3 to 5 pound fish on baits and lures as well. Best bet, of course, if you're looking at that action, you've got a center console, are the inshore, nearshore lumps, perhaps drifting and tossing bits of spearing, if you can find it. It's been a difficult process this year. Or bits of cut up or full peanut bunker. You can use those peanut bunker baits, drift back, no weight or real lightweight into the mix, drift hook chunks or toss metals as soon as those fish turn on. Another buddy of mine, Captain Steve Pearl of Real Fantasy Charters out of Barnegat Inlet, reminds us with this post that yes, the Spanish mackerel are in close as well. A whole speedy trio in the mix with 2 of those species, bonito and Spanish, a pretty good fish for the table as long as you bleed them both pretty quickly. Fresh bonita, what I'll do is I'll flash freeze them at home for a half an hour or an hour and then serve them fresh just as you would with tuna. Those Spanish mackerel, I like to chunk them up into small pieces, mix them up in a saute with Mexican seasonings. Fantastic fish tacos for the table. You can put tomato out, you can put pepper out, you can put sauce and cheese, whatever you like. So it's a neat potpourri for the weekend. False albacore, I would not feed it to my cat. And I don't even have a cat. Best fighter of the group for sure, but I release every one I'm lucky enough to catch. Thin metals, the Deadly Dicks, the Tsunami Slim Waves. Also the Game On Exo jigs or those epoxy jigs, all good. But it's coming on to a great time of year to walk the local beaches here at the Jersey Shore, down into Delaware as well, because you're not gonna get hassled. You can pretty much go on whenever you want. You can don your shorts, some thin metals in your pocket or in a sling bag, and with a light tackle outfit, go to your local beaches, the ones that you love to spend all fall chasing stripers. Go at high tide, go at low tide, go at the middle of tide. It gives you the opportunity in this nice weather and these open beaches to do a little bit of recon for the fall, figure out where all those sloughs and cuts are, and then also throw in those metals at some blitzing fish from time to time. For kayakers, fishing for these speedsters is great. A stealthy approach whereby mostly you're waiting for your shot at the blitz or maybe slow trolling a small Yazori out the back. But in the Fisherman magazine's Coastal Kayak Clash, I happen to be rooting for the home team. I'm a Jersey guy, right? So I'm rooting for the New Jersey Delaware Bay Edition subscriber. And as of last week's report, New Jersey subscriber Bob Wagner was just 4 points behind New England's Justin Ozer, as Justin had just gotten a 19.5-inch hardtail for another 3-pointer. Now, with these speedsters on the prowl and available to our kayakers, if Bob Wagner got himself, let's say, a 20-incher, right, we'd be all tied up, right? It'd be a tie score in the Coastal Kayak Clash. And maybe it's happened. I'm not exactly sure. For that, for the updated details, let's check the leaderboard. Go back to the virtual studio with Tim C. Smith.
In spite of the nice weather, we had just 2 qualifying fish in the CKC this week, but they were both category leaders. Brian Bollerman started the bidding with his 22-inch black sea bass, and Greg Sakowitz leapt to the top of the hardtail category with his 24.5-inch false albacore. The top 3 looks like this. Todd Treones holds 3rd place with 6 points. Bob Wagner remains in 2nd place with 8 points, and Justin Oser is still leading the game with 10 total points. To be part of the CKC and for your chance to win the Old Town Sportsman PDL 120 fully outfitted by yakattack.com and other great prizes, you must be a Fisherman subscriber. For all the details and how to enter, visit thefisherman.com/contests.
Only one new entry this week, and that was from Rashawn Williams of Brooklyn with his 2.53-pound porgy. There is some movement in the leaderboard with Anthony Savino dropping a point with Rashawn C. Robin entry. Here's the latest standings. Scott Waterman has 17 points, Brian Zembreski with 13, Anthony Savino with 12. The fall run will be here soon, so there's still plenty of time to enter your fish to win that Steigercraft powered by Yamaha and other great prizes. But you must be a Fisherman subscriber to enter. What a great deal for $29.95.
Now is the best time to buy a boat at the Jersey Shore Boat Sale and Expo. Fishing boats for inland and offshore. Tons of center consoles. September 27th through 29th, Shoretown Ballpark, home of the Jersey Shore Blue Claws. Tickets at jerseyboatexpo.com.
Life is better with a boat.
This week, the September edition of the Fisherman magazine lands in your mailbox, hopefully by Friday, no later than that. If you're not a subscriber, then you're not in that Coastal Kayak Clash. You're not in the Dreamboat Fishing Challenge either, and you don't have 100% access to everything that's available behind the firewall at thefisherman.com. But don't worry, you can subscribe online, or at the very least, look for the cover with Jenny Ackerman on the cover in the surf. It should be on newsstands and in tackle shops as you're watching this. I'm still waiting for my copy to arrive. It's usually sometimes Wednesday, sometimes Thursday. But if you're getting the September edition late, if it doesn't come until next week, you got to give us a call. Call our customer service number because we've got to figure out why your mailman is reading it before you do. Hard to believe, though, that Al McReynolds' longtime world record striper was caught in the month of September during a northeaster at the height of the mullet run, and sometimes I wonder if those days are mostly gone forever. That said, there's a lot of bait out back right now in the estuaries, and a stretch of cool nights could really lead to something special. Yes, my glass is always half full. But inside that September edition, in the table of contents at the front of the magazine for New Jersey, Delaware Bay, we're fluking down the home stretch with Captain Scott Newhall. We've got until September 25th. You've got Slow Pitch Jigging by Kayak with Lawrence Thompson. There's a Mullet Madness piece, of course there is, by Nick Honicheski of the Saltwater Underground. Typically in the past, I've always thought that the mullet run was like September 15th to October 15th. So we're headed full bore into that. You've got a guide to prepping for the fall striper run with Nicholas Simioli and September Smallies for largemouth, September Smallies and largemouth by Bruce Litton. Think north-south branch of the Raritan. That's not all, of course, because you always have the glossy section articles. So that's double that. You've got 5 local features, 5 glossy features. You've got Tuna Chunking by Captain John Raguso, which of course is this time of year. We're right on that. We've got a pretty good offshore forecast coming up for the weekend. Chuck Manny of the Tie Man offers a very unique perspective on the striper migration using his personal observations and all of the data that we're compiling from the Northeast Striped Bass study. There's a cool photo feature in that glossy section on using spooks for stripers by the DiDonato boys. Monmouth University professor John Tiedemann provides an update on the innovative research techniques currently being employed by the universities in New Jersey on striped bass. And then there's a rod bench feature by Matt Broderick. If you're looking to head to the bench and build your own light tackle surf rod for the fall run, that's in that glossy section as well. In the September edition, the tail end feature, a special commemoration ceremony for the Fisherman magazine's late great senior editor Fred Galafaro. September, believe it or not, will be 3 years since we lost Fred. There may be no better, nicer, or more helpful surfcaster ever in the world of recreational fishing. So that's a cool feature as well. With all this striped bass talk, the anticipation, it had me out on my favorite sod banks earlier this week on Tuesday night just to see what things were looking like. I was, however, disappointed to find water temperatures just at the turn of the tide around 74, 75 degrees, which is still a little bit warm. It was a little lower than that last week, but while it's still a little bit warm for me throwing those surface poppers, those Uzuri 3D inshores or the Tsunami iPop poppers, a few more cooler nights, and I think we will be back on those sod banks popping bass. Because as I was working my way around some of the points and outside the creeks, there is a lot of bait out back. So that's pretty cool. That said, I saw this week where Phil from the Tackle Box in Hazlitt, he sneaked out of the shop long enough to enjoy some old school worming techniques. This beautiful striper that appears to be right there in that slot, that narrow 28 to 31 inch slot. If you want to keep a fish for the table, that's where we stand. Phil said that worming rig for him is that 3-way swivel dropper loop worm. He's using old school Abu Garcia bait casting reel. He's been using it for a long time. Farther south, I heard from Bob Haynes Sr. this week. He messaged me to say that his son, Bob Jr., got a striper on a live spot somewhere behind Barnegat Inlet this week. Bob Sr. said actually they had landed 6 stripers in addition to Bob Sr.'s fluke here, 6 pounds, live spot. That was on a day fishing this week out of Vans in Barnegat Light. So spot, yeah, we've been talking about that for weeks because spot, which used to be just the Cape May goodies, they were only in the southern part of New Jersey. That population of fish has expanded. We're catching them up on the Raritan as well. Sabiki rigs will get you onto the spot, but they do make fantastic late season doormat fluke baits. And of course the tuna hunters love throwing those out there into a tuna mix as well. With that warmer water in the back, a lot more nibbles at this point. The other day I snared a small sea bass on a drift. I know the blowfish are finally starting to get feistier. Mark Thwardziak, he caught this, and I'm sorry about that last name. Mark here caught this juvenile cobia while fishing for blowfish in the Barnegat Bay as well. So chum pot fishing for blowfish, Barnegat Bay, good bet for this weekend if you have the kids on board and you're looking to score. And again, pen up those spot. Just keep offering the kids a benefit. I think I was talking about Dave DeGennaro before. I believe he used to get a quarter from all his kids. He'd say, I want you guys to catch spot, 25 cents a piece, because he'd turn around and sell them for a couple of dollars to the tackle shops. But again, you can pen up those spot, use them for the tuna or doormat fluke. There is a cold front stalling off the coast here today, Thursday. It's supposed to clear out for Friday, and according to the midweek forecast from NOAA Weather, it looks like Saturday in particular will be a great time to head off for the canyons from the Hudson to Baltimore. Several good days in this stretch if you're looking to get offshore, but I'm just looking at that Saturday forecast thinking it's going to be pretty busy for folks that want to get in on that chunk bite. Maybe you're going to drag some sterling wide trackers for bluefin on the mid-range grounds, or the offshore grounds for yellowfin as well. Chris Coombs let me know that he and his wife Laura had their 5-year-old daughter Ellie out for her very first mahi last week. Chris said they picked up that fish along the pots at the Cigar. They found hundreds of chicken mahi all around those pots, kept a few, released a few. Congrats to Ellie for that first and what I'm sure will be many fish to come down the road. Inshore, the easterly winds from that front could do us some good here at the Jersey Shore heading into the weekend as the winds subside a bit for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday into the Labor Day holiday on Monday. Weather-wise, in terms of sun and clouds back at the shore, Weather Center says a chance of, or weather.com says a chance of showers on Friday and Saturday, but it should be a good weekend as we unofficially end the summer of 24 and really enter the greatest time of year here at the Jersey Shore. Because the last day of summer, the first day of fall, isn't until like the third week or something like that of September, which I think it coincides with the end of summer flounder fishing. So these first few weeks of September, primo times for fishermen to get back to the beaches. One person I know you'll find along the central Jersey beaches in particular this fall is Jenny Ackerman. And on this week's Open Boat, she offers up her final fireside chat, a Q&A session with tips for the weekend and the fall run to follow.
Hey everyone, welcome to the final episode of your burning questions answered with Open Boat. So we're gonna get right into it and get your final questions answered. Once again, thank you everyone for contributing. I always love talking with our viewers, and if you have any more future questions, feel free to drop a comment, or if you see me out there, just ask me. I will answer your questions. Don't worry, don't be shy. No question is a dumb one. So let's get right into it with John Waters 4296. What are some fundamental techniques that can help an angler improve with bucktail jigging in the surf? So the one thing I can always say is pair your bucktail with a good trailer. For starters, it can take an angler from not catching anything to catching something instantly. I use a JK bait as a trailer for my bucktails, and when I jig off the surf, like you all know, I had my biggest striped bass caught off the surf on my bucktail with a JK bait. And that's just, the proof is in the pudding, it works. When you're bucktailing in the surf, you have to take into the effect the speed that you're reeling, and based off of what power reel you have to see, like, does it naturally retrieve faster? Does it have a slower retrieve? So when you're reeling, you don't want to reel it in super duper fast. You want to have like a moderate speed, so it's slow enough to where it'll stay in the middle of the water column and you can jig it and it does like a little twitch to look like a wounded bait fish. So you gotta do that type of retrieve when you're bucktailing in the surf. That's specifically like for stripers. If you were trying to catch bluefish on a bucktail jig, you do that. Sometimes I like my retrieve a little bit faster because bluefish will just run and run and run and hit anything in their line of sight, like psychos. I always recommend that when you're surf casting and want to learn the ways to improve, just keep practicing your retrieves and see which one works best for you. In that situation, of course. You can never truly master something, especially with fishing. I've seen the best anglers get skunked on days, so that's why there's always new factors to learn about and to advance your skills with. So continuing to work on something to figure out every little aspect of it improves an angler significantly. So I'm rooting for you guys out there. Catch some fish, continue to learn, take note of the tactics that you're using and what works best. Next up, we have multiple questions from Glenn Thomas, Realtor 6223. So if you want to sell your house, contact Glenn. But the first question is, what is the first thing you change if you're not catching anything from the jetty? Do you change your soft plastic, retrieve, location, lure, or something else? The one thing, you never leave before you switch things up. You stay and you work on a spot and you make it work for you. So you never leave. Don't even think about it. Don't give up. So you can cast in every direction while you're jetty fishing, trying to make it work. Different retrieves, that's what I do. First off, if I'm getting frustrated, cast every direction, different retrieve, see what's working. And if you don't get any hits, that's when you switch up your lure. Depends on what you're using. Like when I'm jetty fishing, sometimes I'll just use my bucktail and I'll start with that. If that's not working, I'll use just like a deep diving swimmer or like an epoxy jig. It really depends on the time of year, what fish are around, what bait are around, stuff like that. So that's like the best thing is just stick it out, make it work. Don't leave. Start with your casting directions and your retrieve, and then think about switching the plug if needed. The next question from Glenn is, what are your thoughts on scented versus unscented soft plastics? So I've always been a fan of the scented soft plastics, from fluking to striper fishing. Every soft plastic I use is scented. Some of them don't smell great, especially if you spill them in your car like I just did. They don't smell good. But scent is a major factor for fish to find food. They have specialized organs called olfactory rosettes, and the number in the folds in the tissue determine how sensitive that fish is to detecting odors. And sometimes that sense of smell is the only way they have like to find their meal, because sometimes like the water quality can affect their vision, certain things just, you know, like that. They have to rely on their sense of smell. So yes, scented baits are the way to go. Yes. Next question. What is more important when fishing a soft plastic, color or presentation? Well, when I fish a soft plastic, based on the species, I feel that both of these are important. There's no one or the other. Sometimes weak fish only hits pink soft plastic. Sometimes fluke won't hit a bucktail with a soft plastic. They only want a jig head in soft plastic. Fish, sometimes the bite can be finicky. You have to apply this to every application of fishing for your targeted species and see what works best for that species. You can literally, scientific talk here, you can produce a hypothesis and put it to the work to draw a conclusion. So the final question is, jetty fishing for blackfish, my favorite species. Do they only eat green crabs or will something else work? So jetty fishing for blackfish, which is so much fun, which you can do right now off of like South Jersey, and you can, you know, follow the regulations and keep your one fish if you wanna. But when I go fishing in the summertime for blackfish, my favorite bait of choice are the sand fleas or mole crab, however you call them based off of your region, but they are an excellent all-around bait for summertime stripers and blackfish, sheep's head, and triggerfish. You can really get like the trifecta, beyond trifecta species there. Like you can catch your blackfish, you can catch sheep's head, triggerfish, like I just said, even some stripers. So you can get like a 4 for 4 with that. You can, like, you don't even have to buy them. You can walk the beach before you go fishing and you could scrape them up with your hands and you collect them and you have bait. You have an infinite bait glitch right there if you find them on the right beaches. And of course, when you're walking the beaches, there's other baits such as like little calico crabs that are shedding. You can use those too, because in the summertime, the blackfish have softer lips and they will crunch those things down, no problem. And that's like one thing. It's basically like a cheat, basically. You're walking the beaches to see what's in the water, bait-wise, to see what the fish are feeding on, so it can be applied to every species you're targeting that you know is running in that area. So you can use also, if you don't want to dig around for sand fleas, you can get like little strips of clam, like salted clam, imitation baits, bits of shrimp, smaller shed crabs, fiddler crabs if you can find them, and even some like sandworms and stuff like that. You can all use those as excellent summertime blackfish jetty baits. So you don't just have to use crabs, you got an array of live and imitation baits. Like Fish Bites makes great imitation blackfish baits for the summertime, like strips, especially for people who don't want to get pinched or they don't want to deal with smelly bait. You can switch up to the imitation alternative. So that concludes part 3 of burning questions. All of your questions have been answered by yours truly. And thank you so much, everyone, for contributing. Like I said before, if you have any more questions, don't be shy. You can feel free to ask me in the comments or ask me if you see me in public fishing or anything. I will answer your question. So thank you again, guys, and I'll catch you on next week's Open Boat.
Now, in the September edition of the Fisherman magazine out this week, all the latest fishing reports through this Sunday are posted inside the report section, right behind the photo in the report section cover of Tatiana Roth with that cobia she caught a few weeks back. But while the Fisherman does cover a lot of saltwater fishing, we're, 75, 80% marine fisheries, obviously, J.B. Casper's comprehensive freshwater report appears 38 times on a weekly basis throughout the year, 12 of those coming on a monthly basis in that print edition. His August report and his September forecast for New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania Sweetwater option runs from page 61 this month to page 64 in the report section. I talk to folks during the year at shows, boat shows. Like I'll talk to people at the upcoming Jersey Shore Blue Claws Stadium show, the Marine Trades Association. That's the third week in September, and folks will say, yeah, do you cover Round Valley Reservoir? Do you cover? Oh yeah, it's all in JB's Freshwater report if you read the whole thing. We are heading to my favorite time of year to visit the mountains, a little early for fall foliage perhaps, but these cooler nights should be helping the fall-like fishing out of places like Beltsville and the Poconos. For the latest rundown on freshwater action in the tri-state region, let's check in with George Shower, our Pocono outdoors guy.
Well, hey, thanks, Jim. You know, these cooler nights as we head into the Labor Day weekend is certainly turning that fishing bite on. We had quite a few guys check in this week with a lot of examples of some great fishing. Starting off things, we had Dylan Golem checking in. He was fishing Manasquan Reservoir and getting some nice smallmouth, working a 3-inch gulp minnow with a 1/8 ounce jig head. And this photo is sent in to us from Adam Aguilar. So thank you for that, guys. Some really good fishing over there at the Manasquan Reservoir. Our local pro here, Nick Canestra, well, he was out in south central Pennsylvania. He was out fishing some smallmouth on a jig. Again, that small, slow presentation seems to be getting these smallmouth turned on really quickly. Also, over here a little bit further in Pennsylvania, we had local guides Steve Kolnick and Josh Taylor. Well, they are both out pre-fishing the Lehigh River for the upcoming season, the fall season that is, actually getting a bunch of really nice smallmouth and even a really nice brown trout, again, on a nice slow presentation. We look at the bigger lakes, you know, Wallenpaupack and Beltsville. They continue to produce those really nice stripers. We had Will Grouper here producing a really nice striper out of Wallenpaupack, but we're getting the same results here in Beltsville. Even if you get a little bit further south down into Nockamixon, getting some of those hybrids or wipers as well. So lots of great fishing. Hey, it's going to be a great weekend this coming weekend for Labor Day. I hope there's a chance you can get out and get on them. But from Pennsylvania, I'm George, your Pocono outdoors guy.
Now, I know a lot of folks from the Philadelphia area on out to the Poconos are heading to the shore this weekend, heading into Atlantic and Cape May counties. And for those of you who are asking, yes, Sheephead action is still good. In fact, I heard from Matthew Lease, who was out with Scotty Sevens behind Ocean City on Tuesday, managed this monster, a 28-inch sheepshead. Matthew and Scotty tagged it. They released Big Earl here, but they estimated this fish at somewhere around 14 to 15 pounds. God bless you guys for releasing that fish. I know Scotty and several other people that I talked to, Danny Schaefer, all like to release those big fish. Bob Stavola in his August article on sheepshead fishing, those bigger fish, try to let them go. But I'll tell you, some of those smaller fish, they do make some great table fare. The folks at Sea Isle Bait and Tackle said, quote, "The sheepshead bite is going off," with Wes here reporting 3 of the convicts to 6.14 pounds, along with a keeper tog. If you're putting a tog jig down baited with crab, you're pretty much gonna get what? A sheepshead or a tog, depending on, you know, what's around at the time. Look at the blind squirrel alert for you. Picked up some greenies myself at Gabriel Tackle and Brick the other day, and was even able to find a keeper tog myself in the back bay along some local structure. Now's the time to look for those jetty blackfish. Inlet jetty rocks, bridge stanchions perhaps, sometimes along the sod banks as well, especially some of those deeper cuts. But green crabs, sand crabs, fiddler crabs if you can get them, Asian shore crabs as well. Sometimes it's more in the spring season, but the tog are apt to take clam as well, especially in those back bays. But usually that's something with the softer baits related to around the time of the spring spawn. You can make fun of my 17.5-inch tog all you want, but it was perfect size for the wife and I. Black and black fish with garden rosemary and Jersey potatoes. Fantastic. Memorial Day starts the summer. That's a time for honor and remembrance for those who made the ultimate sacrifice for this country. Labor Day, on the other hand, is a celebration of the first Monday of September to honor and recognize American labor. So hopefully you have the day off. That said, I do want to remember a couple of important people in our recreational fishing community who passed away over the summer months. Captain Russ Binns, for one, passed earlier this summer. A friend of mine, longtime owner of Coast Boating School. In fact, that's how I got my boating safety certificate, is through Captain Russ. I'll miss seeing him during the boat show circuit, talking to him about New Jersey's fishy political environment. And I know a lot of you got your boating certificate through Russ at Coast Boating School as well. My condolences to the family. Another friend passed away more recently, a historian of sorts who did an amazing job of collecting much of the historic imagery of New Jersey's recreational headboat community in particular. Mel Deek passed away after a long battle with cancer. He was 77. But I highly encourage you to go look for some of his amazing collection. I know he's got stuff posted at his Facebook page, but go to mels-place.com and check out all that great historical information that Mel Deek collected over the years. I'm guessing that Mel and Dave Arbeitman are tile fishing somewhere, probably with Chris Hewitt, Captain Jeff Gutman in the helm. At least that's the way I picture it. Enjoy the 3-day holiday weekend. Look for your September copy of the Fisherman magazine. Catch them up. And we'll see you again right here next week, the Fisherman magazine and thefisherman.com.